Hello, my name is Dino Ignacio, and I made this tricorder, and I'm gonna be installing Gerry's electronics kit in it. So here, let's just go through all the parts. I made the main body, the lower body, and this is the funnel for the light to go on the screen. You'll see that I painted it black. I corrected this later on. I think it's better if you paint it silver so that it reflects the light back out to the screen. This is the sensor hood, and I painted it black and added white and gray detailing to match the one from the show, and it fits perfectly here on the front of the tricorder. Here is the electronics kit that you can buy from Gerry. I can provide the link down below later on. It comes fully assembled. You have to solder a couple of things to some hinges, but other than that, everything's pre-wired and it's beautiful, as you can see here. And this is me just trying to fit it before I do anything else. One thing to note is that be careful when you set this up. Like, as you can see here, I actually have it upside down. This is the right way to do it. Lights should fit perfectly to the sensor hood. So this is a quick note. As you go through this build, it's important to turn on the lights every so often just to make sure that they do actually fit, and B, to make sure that you're not popping any of the solder as you build. So here, let's start the build. Let's start off by snipping some of these transparent resin bits that I've made. The links to the model will be available down below as well. This is a free model that I've created for anyone who wants to make the kit. So here's me just trimming the edges of the resin bits. You'll probably need to sand some of these things to fit them perfectly. So these go here on the sensor hood, as you can see. You may have to figure out like if you got it upside down. So you just turn it around if it's the wrong way. It should only come in one way, so that's actually the wrong way to do it. Let's see, the other way. Perfect. So here's me fitting all the other bits in here. Some of them come in from the bottom and some come in from the top. That should be obvious from the lip on the edges of the transparent bits. Most of them actually come in from the bottom. It's only two, so rather three things that come in from the top. It's the top left sensor, the rounded one, and the two bottom ones. Those come in from the top. The rest come in from the bottom. Okay. So this is me just fitting all the little bits in there. As you can see, again, some of them will require some sanding, not a whole lot, but both on the transparent bits and maybe some of the holes. I recommend sanding sticks on the holes on the sensor hood to get in there. It might be hard to just sand it with a regular sandpaper. So again, this is me fitting more of the bits in, and you should I don't know if I videoed it, but then I then got some hot glue and added some hot glue to the back side of these things just to fix them properly. Don't put too much because you're gonna have to make sure that there's space for the board, electronics board, to fit in there. So don't put too much hot glue. So this is me just fitting some of the round little bulb bits for the light. Again, it's important to, as you test this and fit it, to sand things down to make sure they fit properly, and then see if you can run the lights, like pressure fit them into the holes, or rather the slot, and then test it every so often. This makes sure that everything you're doing works. So this is me testing it right now. So next stage here is to actually hot glue this thing together. So the part that I didn't get to video was that I actually hot glued all those transparent bits to the sensor hood, so they don't pop out. Okay, so this is me just adding a little bit of hot glue on the edges. You don't put too much, you don't need a whole lot. Nice thing about hot glue is that if you ever make a mistake, you can pop it out again. So it's in your best interest to just put enough to hold it, but not so much that it'll be hard to remove it if you need to. So this is me just adding a little bit along the edges and pushing the whole thing down as it dries, or rather cools down. So the thing about hot glue, as you already probably know, is that it needs to cool down for it to adhere. So it's best to just like hold things in place as it cools down. Cool, so this is me just adding a little bit on this side. Okay, that's good. Now let's just hold it down for a little bit. Cool, that looks really cool. I just really love these electronics from Gerry. Okay, the next stage is to slowly, and I mean slowly and carefully, run the cables for the sensor hood through the back of the tricorder and up to the front. And you have to make sure that you figured out like which top is. So in this case, the top of the, or rather the orientation of this whole thing should be that the rounded transparent bit should be on the top left, which is what I'm doing here right now. And then you'll notice I'm not really gluing anything down right now because I want to make sure all the other bits are in the right place before I do anything else. So try not to do any hot gluing at this point. Just see if you can align everything. So one thing that you need to take note of is that you need to be very careful that you don't pop any of these wires right now. It's very easy to do that. A lot of these things are very fragile, so be careful. Don't screw this up. That said, if you do, it's very easy to just like solder it back together. I may have popped a few cables along the way as I do this build. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to glue down this light on the top of the tricorder. I should note that I actually forgot to do one thing here. I should have put in the transparent bits for those two lights, but I actually neglected to print those, and so I'm just gonna do those last. But it's probably better if you do that before you put in these lights here, but if you don't, it's okay. You can pop them in later. So this is me just testing the light as I go. Like I said, it's important to make sure that the lights are aligning to the holes, and the only way to do that is to turn it on every so often before you do any of the hot gluing, just to make sure that it's in the right spot. So this is me just laying in the lights. The boards are actually meant to fit perfectly into this 3D model. I created little canals for them so they fit pretty well. But that said, it's just always test. You may have things upside down. Before you do any major hot gluing, make sure you're testing what you're building and testing how you're fitting things with the whole body. Okay, so as you can see here, it looks great. Again, I missed putting a couple of the transparent resin bits for those two. That's okay, I can add those later. Okay, So now that I've got that in there, next thing I'm gonna do is glue down the buttons. I'm using the, as you can see there, I'm using the charging cable to turn off the whole thing. But yeah, so this is me trying to plug in the button board into the tricorder. I am gonna try to do that right now, right here. Okay, let's give it a shot. So again, being very careful here, just finding the right orientation. As you'll see on the button board, there's 3 buttons on there. See if you can match it to the holes on the tricorder. And like I said, there's a canal for it to fit, and it fits perfectly in there. But just make sure you've got it the right spot. Okay, so now that you've figured that out, you can add the glue and push that down in there as it cools down. Yeah, there's a lot of fitting things in here, and the key is to just be very gentle and careful as you go. It's very easy to screw this up. Okay, and then that's the reason why it's important to just turn it on every so often, just to see if you broke anything along the way. What I'm trying to do here is see if I can video it for you as I go, but it's very hard to video that area while I go, but you get the picture. I'm just adding glue and holding it down over the piece. Okay, cool. So now that that's in there, you can see that, let's just let it cool down a bit, and it doesn't hurt to add a little bit more hot glue to make sure that it's really secure in there. Especially those buttons, they're gonna need to be pressed, and so if that's the case, it'd be better if you add a little bit more glue there to make sure that when you press it, it doesn't pop off. Cool. So it's good to see that that works. Let's just add more glue. Try not to burn yourself. I did that a few times. Cool. So now that those 2 pieces are in place, we can start to seal the front sensor array. I'm not going to glue this down yet, just in case things move around, but it's good to just at least like pop that thing in place so it doesn't like swing around as I move the whole tricorder around. So good, that looks great. And then again, test as you go, test often. So it seems like all the lights are still in place. That's good. Now let's start working on the lower body real quick. So this is me just adding this transparent bit right here. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit. I'm going to sand that piece down, both the transparent part and also the lower body. You can use a filing stick like this one, and then also you can get these really cool sanding sticks from Amazon. They work great. They're great for like little holes that you need to get into if you need to sand things down. I love these things. I can put the link to them in the description as well. But yeah, they're awesome. Okay, that should work. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, looks like it's a good pressure fit. Awesome. Cool, looks great. Okay. So now let's just glue that in place. It's pressure fit and it seems fine, but it doesn't hurt to just add some glue on it. Perfect. So while I'm at it, maybe it's a good time to add the magnet to that little area for the reed switch. Awesome. So the kit should have come with a little magnet, and that goes in there. I should say that I added a little canal for a magnet there. I may modify the model. I realized that that might not be the perfect spot for a magnet, and so I actually added the second one later, and you'll see that. But yeah, make sure you add the magnet there. I may adjust that spot by the time you print this, and if not, it's okay. You can add a second magnet there, even though there's no slot. You can just glue it on. Okay, so this is me just organizing the bottom of the, sorry, rather the board for the main body. Before you do any gluing, the important thing is to make sure everything fits. So this is me just doing a test fit for the lower part, and the way you do this, and it's very finicky, is that you first try to run the power light, which is that red light on the top of the board. Okay, and don't forget to glue down the reed switch underneath the main board. It goes right down there. So as you can see there, I popped it in and everything fits perfectly. That's good. I can probably use an X-Acto blade to make sure that I've cleared that bottom light there. Anyway, everything seems to fit. So next thing I'm going to do is, I think I'm confident that the top part of the tricorder is in a good spot. It's a good time to glue this down. As you can see, I'm not using hot glue here. I'm using E6000. The reason for that is that E6000 is a little less goopy, and so in areas that might become exposed, I tend to use this. It's also it takes longer to dry, but it's a lot stronger, I think. So a little bit goes a long way. And much like hot glue, it's very forgiving. You can, if you make a mistake, you can pop this off and do it again. I recommend this over super glue any day. Super glue tends to be permanent. Okay, the hinges. I could have done this better. I painted mine gray, as you can see there. I could have done that better, but you know, this works. So this is the positioning for the hinges. Make sure you get it right, and do some trial fittings before you do glue these things down. But as you can see here, I'm putting glue on the front face of the hinge, and the glue is on the side that faces out. The reason for that is that I want the other side to not have any glue, so I can solder to it. Cool? Awesome. So that's good. And let's do the other one. Again, glue on the front face. So we can solder to the other side. Now if you haven't seen it, the model or the print here is designed to have a hole on the other side of that little pocket for the hinge that you can use to solder power that can run through the conductive hinges to the other side, to the lower body of the tricorder. So this is the reason why we didn't quite glue this piece down yet. I want to make sure that I've got room to solder these things in there. So if you can see there, you've got these two spots where you need to do some soldering. This hole right here on the left, and this hole you have on the right. So the best way to do this is to just solder these things in there. So the black goes on one side and the red goes on the other. So the way I do it is I pre-fill the two holes with solder, so it's very easy to just heat it up and then drop the wires in there. So this is me now adding glue to the lower body, and much like the main body, the glue goes just on one side. Just spread it a little bit and then put it in. Perfect. We'll do some paint touch up there later, make it prettier. Awesome. Okay, so on this side again, I'm gonna pre-fill those two holes with some solder so that I can just like heat up a couple of those wires and solder them into those two holes. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so this is what we're gonna solder to that thing. First, the red goes to this side. I'm really bad at soldering, so I hope you can do better than me in this part. But yeah, there we go. Bring that in there. Awesome. Cool. So with that in, let's see if it works. Boom, it lights up. That means our soldering works. I'm pretty proud of myself. I usually suck at this. Cool. Okay. So now let's glue that light in onto that emergency button. Perfect. So again, this is a good time to always like just turn on the whole thing to see if it's in the right spot. It is. Perfect. Good. Cool. Let's add more glue to that to make sure it doesn't pop off. Okay. Cool. Just goop it on. Okay. So now there's a light that goes to the ID button on the bottom of the lower body. See if we can attach that now. These cables are really thin, so please be careful with it. Okay, so that goes there. I've got this little transparent bit that goes in that hole. As you can see, we may need to sand it down. Not to worry. Okay, so it should be in. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to enable that second reed switch. So this is the reed switch that makes the tricorder make a sound when you start to close it up again. So there's a reed switch on this side and then a magnet on the other. So I put a little hole for it, and then there's a magnet on this side. So what happens is when that magnet separates from that reed switch, it should start to make a sound. It's that same ratchet sound that happens when you open the tricorder. It also happens when you close it. If it doesn't work too well, just make sure that the reed switch is in the right spot. I'm gonna adjust that and fix it. Okay, so for the screen, again, like I said, I should have painted this silver. That's easy to fix. But yeah, again, this is another opportunity to make sure that you're turning on the whole thing to test it before you glue. There you go. Okay. Yeah, the awesome thing about using a glue gun is that, you know, A, you can remove it if you make a mistake, and B, it cures very quickly, right? So within seconds of you laying it in, it's pretty rigid, and that's awesome. Make sure all three LEDs are able to shine through the funnel. Cool. And that goes right there. So don't glue that down. You still need to print out a transparency. I don't have any right now, so it's not going to be part of this first video, but I will do that at some point, and show you how you can put that in there. I'm also working with Gerry to figure out if we can eventually add a screen, an actual working OLED screen to that window. Cool. So everything's working. That looks great. So now let's work on the stickers. Again, here's the full thing. I've done a few adjustments since the last shot. The second reed switch should be working now. It was acting funny earlier. I had to make a few adjustments, but it's fine. It works now. Got it working. Okay. So, the next thing we're gonna do is work on the decals and the magnetic enclosures for this whole thing. So as you can see here, I've actually started to do that. I've added a bunch of magnets. So these are I'm gonna add a link to where I got these specifically and what size they are. But basically, you add these magnets and the 3D model should have holes that fit them perfectly. You may require to run a drill bit through the holes a little bit to make them slightly bigger if they don't fit. Don't use a mechanical drill, just the drill bit, just run it through the holes with your hands. just to make the holes a little bit bigger if they are indeed too small. But anyway, this is how it goes. I added magnets that make this close properly. Let me show you how I do it. So on this side, I'm gonna do it and show you. So first, add magnets to the panel like so. And it's not so important which polarity the magnets are, at least on one side, right? And so the next thing I do is I add a second magnet to sit on top of those 4 magnets, and I'll show you why I'm doing that. I then so again, just add these 4 on top of the 4 that you already have, and then you get a Sharpie. Well, let's see. Okay, so let's get a Sharpie. And mark the bottoms of these second magnets that sit on top of the other ones. The reason why I'm marking this is so that I know which side to glue onto the main body. So basically, I want to make sure that these match up in polarity, and the best way to do that is to mark them so that I know which side I'm gluing down. So this is me just making sure everything's marked. You can do this with some paint, or in my case, I just use a Sharpie. So here I am. I'm gonna add some E6000 into the 4 holes. Again, I'm using E6000 in these areas because they're less goopy than hot glue, and they take a little while longer to dry, so it's more forgiving. I'm not rushing as I do this. I can move things around. So again, I grab one of the magnets, make sure that I don't see the Sharpie because it should be in the bottom, right? If you're seeing the Sharpie marking that you made, turn the magnet around. You want to make sure that the Sharpie ink is facing downwards. And then I'm using a little tool here to just like shove that magnet in there. Cool. And I'm gonna do that for the other 3 sides. There may be other ways to do this, but this is how I do it. Oh, and also the inside of this tricorder looks like a real mess right now. I plan to clean this up, maybe even add a mount for the speaker, and possibly change the charging port to a wireless one. But for now, I'm keeping it a little bit loose because I still want to do some mods to the inside of this tricorder, and so I don't want to make anything permanent yet, and that's why things are a little loose in there, and so it looks ugly. But once it's closed up, it's fine. No one knows that it's a mess in there. But yes, I do get it. I plan to clean that up at some point. So again, this is the 4th magnet, making sure that the Sharpie end is on the bottom and matching up with my enclosure panels. So I'm gonna let that dry, and while I do that, let's do some of the decals. So here on the right, as you can see, I've got little pieces of styrene, and they're 1/16 of an inch thick, and I just cut little squares. And the reason I have made them is I want to make sure that after when we press on these buttons, that you don't have to put a lot of effort and push down on the stickers too much. This makes sure that the decals don't get deformed by the buttons when you press them, and they just feel a lot better when there's a little bit of cushioning in there under the decals. So this is me just trimming the styrene to make sure it fits perfectly. If you're wondering what those magnets on the hinge are, I just found that that's an easy way to turn off the tricorder while you're working. If you put magnets there, it's close enough to the reed switch that it turns off the whole thing while you're working and testing things. So it's a quick way to just like turn it off and turn it on. So there you go. So those fit pretty well. So let's start putting on the decals. So these decals I printed with my inkjet printer and my Cricut, and I used a die cut kiss cut sticker setting. I also put a UV laminate on top of them, so they're really slick and professional looking. I'm considering selling those. We'll see if people need them. So I actually reprinted these stickers later on. They look a little too light right now, to the point where there's not enough contrast between the tricorder body and the sticker. So these aren't the final ones. I've adjusted them since this video. But in any case, let's see how this works. So this is me popping on the top stickers, and well, there you go. It works pretty well. Cool. And here's the main face sticker. I don't know if you notice here, but my bio light turned off for some weird reason. I think something is loose in the back. Again, always be careful with your circuitry as you put it on, as you move things around. These are easy to fix. The electronics that were made by Gerry are very well done, so I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, the stickers feel really professional and they look great. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. I'd never made die cut stickers before at this point, but yeah, they worked out pretty awesome, and I'm really happy with how sleek they look, and how sturdy they are. They look great. They add a lot of professionalism to this. And the last tricorder I built, I hand cut the stickers and it was horrible. The prints look great, but the moment you cut them, they look horrible. So this is a step up from that. I'm so glad I figured this out. And let's see, a couple more stickers and this should be done. So yeah, again, the bio light is off. I can fix that. Let's see, the screen, I still need to get some transparency, printable transparency, inkjet printable transparencies that I can print a screen on, and then I'm gonna put that in that little window. And then eventually I hope to make a mod to allow for an actual video screen in there. I'm still gonna figure that out, but until then, I think this looks pretty good. This is now very shelf worthy and cosplay worthy. I think it looks amazing. That sticker's a little crooked, but we can fix that. But yeah, so here it is. As you can see, I've got it all together. Few missing things. I still need to put a screen in the front, and those two transparent resin bits for the top lights. But other than that, it looks great. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It looks and feels really professional. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. The bio light I will fix, that's easy enough. But overall, this has been an amazingly fun build. So there you go.